So now after the Intrigue Challenge, he still isn't able to pull off any chains, but he drops in Khal Drogo. An interesting card from the core set, to be sure. In this deck, it's actually very much a positive because it's kind of a double whammy when you win a challenge. You get to drop him in for free, and you're already putting chains on the board. And then you can kind of mess with his icons because of Black Iron Link. So really, it's a dynamic card. Is it the best Khal Drogo? That's questionable, but it's definitely not a bad one. You know, your choices are all three Khal Drogos are very good. If you don't have Dothraki in your deck, the Dead Leech Khal Drogo that lets you get Dothraki is not necessarily as good. The Kill Khal Drogo requires you to be able to win Power Challenge, and this deck doesn't necessarily have a ton of icons to win those Power Challenges. So that's probably the best Khal Drogo you can play, and it's free. Here, the Targ or the Lancer player is going all out on military. Not sure what the reason is, but he definitely can't. It's definitely going to take a lot from the Targ player to not lose this challenge. So if I had to guess, that's really all that was about. He wanted to make sure that it was very difficult for the Targ player to win this, or for the Targ player to win this challenge. He really wants to kill somebody, and it's a good choice. All the characters that he could kill are good characters. A Tricon, Strength 3 with Stealth. A Duocon, Strength 3 with Stealth and Intrigue. And Khal Drogo, Strength 3, Stealth. So all the cards he's going to kill are very good. So my guess is that the Targ player is trying to decide what to get killed. The Khal Drogo, you know, it's a good card, but it's probably the best one to kill here. He put it into play for free, so it's not like he spent anything but a card from his hand. And a Tricon Stealth is probably better than a Bicon Stealth. It's not really a tough decision. The only decision I'm guessing he's making is if there's any cards he can play from his hand to make him win this challenge. And he doesn't look like he's going to have anything, so he's probably going to defend it and deny him the power. But he's still trying to make that decision. My guess is he was thinking about killing Griff, so he's going to oppose with Griff. Here, he opposes with a Griff. Yep, he chooses to claim Griff and Varys. Interesting. He must think he's going to be able to do something with that Khal Drogo in future turns that he's not going to be able to do with young Griff. I'm somewhat surprised by that, as Griff can't be controlled by the Alchemist Guild Hall, and Griff's a Tricon, so he must have some tricks up his sleeve for the future that he's thinking of. We'll see what he does here. He saves his threat from the north for last. Probably a good play because there's really no need to recycle that card against this deck. It's almost impossible for him to kill or discard the Lancer player's cards because of the Tunnels of the Red Keep. It's really limiting his ability to control the game. And the Lancer player can play almost any plot he chooses. Here, he plays a City of Soldiers. Ironically, I think he has to kill one of his characters to his City of Soldiers, so he kills the Lanceport Weaponsmith. Not a bad move. He's still got 2 claims, so pretty much anything the Targ player does right now is going to be pointless. You have to guess he either has an Intrigue icon in hand or in shadows, because otherwise the 2 claim isn't necessarily as beneficial. If you can only push through the military challenge, you can't really get at his hand. That's one of the big advantages of 2 claim is when you can push through the Intrigue of the military, you're just destroying your opponent's ability to play, and you're ruining his board position. So I have to guess he's got an Intrigue icon to play out here. Targ player, he's not really getting much help from his draw. He has a Viserion in hand, but not particularly helpful when the opponent's locations are somewhat beefy. The only thing he's going to easily be able to pop is the Gold Road. And you need Claim Soak against a 2-claim challenge. So he drops in the Shadow Parasite and the Viserion. If he wins the challenge, he's going to drop in Drogo, so he gets some play there. But there you go. There's Penny. That's funny. Gets a nice big Intrigue icon and control out of Penny. Just more discard for the Targ player unless he wants to have one of his characters knelt. This is just dominating board position. Oh, and then Varys comes out and discards Shadow Parasite, and kneels Viserion with the Alchemist Guild Hall. This is just board dominance. I mean, if the Targ player gets back to his Valor, it's almost not going to do anything beneficial for him. So many cards on the Lancer player's side, so much gold. The Targ player is starting to run out of resources. He has no characters, can't get his chains off. This game's almost over. Here the I'm surprised the Targ player chose the Pyrophobia Penny. He played a Harried by Dragons to reduce his strength to 2, then played the Pyrophobia to return Penny to the Lancer player's hand, and he gets the Harried by Dragons back into his hand. It's a nice little combo. He likes it. And it's one of those things that if not people in your meta aren't exposed to it, it will be a nice little surprise for them. Pyrophobia is certainly an interesting card, but I guess he wanted to get Penny out so that less control on the Lancer player's side. Or he couldn't get it on Varus and he wants to try and minimize the damage he takes on Intrigue. Probably more that he couldn't control Varus out. So here they're on their final plot. The Lannister player has the Valar himself. Ouch. That could be very beneficial for the Targ player. You can see he chooses to let Maester Aemon die. Probably a good move because you don't want to give the Targ player a chance to come back by discarding the Enslaved and getting Maester Aemon back. So that's probably the correct move there. Gets rid of a link that the Targ player could have activated because even though the Lancer player controlled Maester Aemon, the link was still actually in control of the Targ player, so anytime he knelt Maester Aemon, the Targ player could go back and get attachments. But even though the Lancer player valored himself and doesn't have any claim this turn, he's going to have, again, more resources than the Targ player. And that is really what's giving him such a huge game here. Even if he doesn't play cards, I mean, a refugee, he might lose it to claim, but he's going first. So he can push it through for a power challenge, take his power, and just wait for next turn when he gets his claim back, gets all his plot backs, and continues kind of dominating the Targ player. And the Targ player doesn't have a bunch of resources to play with here, so even if he has a good hand, he's going to only be able to play weenies, or he's going to play in something to attempt to kill the refugee so that he doesn't get the power. While it's not as dominated as it was at the beginning of the turn, this is still pretty much pure domination on the part of the Lannister player. The Targ player plays out a horseback archers here. He hard plays it. Ooh. The Lannister player takes another Silent Sisters out of Shadows, nailing the horseback archers. So I'm guessing the Targ player wanted to push through that military challenge to kill something. He probably had cards in his hand to do so. Or the... Oh, sorry. The refugee was actually going to only be at 3 strength, so he could have pushed that through. Oh, never mind. The refugee was beefy, so he couldn't have pushed it through. So, the Neil just, again, he's going to only push through power challenges here. So, my guess is he'll try and push through not power challenge, unopposed challenges. So, my guess is he'll try and push through an unopposed challenge and then take dominance so he doesn't lose his refugee. We'll see what he chooses to do. They're right now just discussing what actually this Lancer deck loses to. Obviously, it's a hard counter to Targ. No question about that. This deck just counters Targ. It's an uphill battle for Targ. Let's see if anything comes out here to help the Targ player, or any worse effects come out to hurt the Lancer player. Sounded like Greyjoy was the difficult matchup for Lannister. Makes sense. Wintertime Marauders is going to counteract a lot of what's coming out of this Lannister deck, and it's going to have naval escorts to counteract those big strengths, scouting vessels to push through challenges. It does make sense that Greyjoy was kind of able to win against this deck. So there's a consideration that he's going to have to make. How does he beat Greyjoy? What is he going to do to beat Greyjoy? Does he play counter locations? Does he play cancel effects? That's going to be the matchup that this Lannister deck is going to have to consider going forward. Targ, on the other hand, is going to consider, how do you win this matchup? Do you have to retool your whole deck? Do you just assume that if you come up against it, you're going to lose and hope you don't come up against it? Interesting considerations from a deck building standpoint. This is a tough matchup for Targ. pretty much a hard counter. There you can see the Targ player conceding because he knows this is just an unwinnable game at this point for him. Probably was an unwinnable game from the start, but if the cards fell his way, he was going to be able to win it. But back to the drawing board. So there you have it. You get to see what happens when Targ's hard counter, when Targ plays its hard counter, and you also get to see one of the new potential deck archetypes out of Lannister from House of Dreams, Tunnels of the Red Keep, playing on the existing theme they already have of their Shadows, City of Shadows build. It's kind of interesting. It just kind of switches out some of the City of Shadows cards for House of Dreams and Tunnels of the Red Keep. Alright, that's it for today, and I hope to have something from you next week. And if you're in the New York City area, please feel free to check us out. Our website is in the description. Thanks for listening.